Hey, what's going on everyone? It's Justin here and welcome to the review of the LG G5. LG definitely took a really different approach with the G5 this year. With the G4, it seemed to focus on the fundamentals and it did everything very well, making it one of my favorite smartphones of last year. Although it didn't really have any major flaws, I felt like LG did play it safe and the smartphone wasn't really exciting in any way. This year I was really excited for the LG G5 and I have to say I am quite disappointed, but let me explain. So this year LG took the approach of a new modular design. In the past few years, major smartphone manufacturers have been testing the waters of what could be the next big thing for smartphones. Samsung started out with the Edge display, LG tried out bendable phones such as the LG Flex series, and we also saw something like a second screen in the LG V10 late last year. With the LG G5 though, it is one of the first major smartphones out there that I could think of that features a fully modular design. What LG intends you to do is purchase separate batteries for the G5 or a camera attachment or the Bang & Olufsen audio DAC, and these are called the LG Friends. However, upon release, I noticed that these parts were very hard to find and we just recently found out that the Bang & Olufsen DAC will not be coming to America. So quickly, what was supposed to be one of the major features and focuses of the G5 is already badly executed and barely available at launch. When it comes to the hardware, the LG G5 has a USB-C port and a fingerprint sensor located in the button on the back. One thing that is kind of weird though is the volume rockers are now located on the side, so you still have the button on the back, but to change the volume it will be on the side. Personally, I don't prefer it, but I think it will take some getting used to. There's already been a bit of a scandal with the build quality and construction, as LG had originally claimed that this is a full metal smartphone, but we quickly found out upon its release, it is like a plastic layer of paint being applied over the thin layer of aluminum. Like a lot of people, when I first saw the G5, I really wasn't a big fan of the look. It almost looked like a prototype or something incomplete, and after the G4 last year being a pretty good looking phone and giving you the ability to customize it, you can still customize your LG G5 by picking up a D-brand skin like I've done here, and the link will be in the description section below. When it comes to the specs, the G5 has all of the flagship numbers you would expect, including a Snapdragon 820 processor paired up with 4GB of RAM. Inside you'll find a 2800 mAh battery, and on the top you'll find a dual camera setup, including one that is 16 megapixels and the other being 8. One of the things I did enjoy about the hardware though was that the LG G5 comes in at a very comfortable size. It is at 5.3 inches and features a Quad HD 2560 by 1440 IPS LCD display. At a 554 ppi, I really shouldn't be complaining at all. Everything is really sharp and vibrant, and the display for the most part is pretty good, except for one big issue. LG claimed that this display is brighter than ever, being increased from 500 to 850 nits this year, but I have to say that is the complete opposite. One thing that myself and some of my friends and fellow YouTubers have noticed is that the display is actually very dim. When I compared it to my Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge, which is considered to be the elite benchmark for the best smartphone display, I would say the LG G5 at its brightest setting looked like it was anywhere from 75 to 80%. Even when compared to my iPhone, I found the display noticeably dim, so I'm not really sure what LG is talking about here, but it is quite a big disappointment. The LG G5 runs Android 6.0 Marshmallow and has LG Optimus UX 5.0. My opinions about this are pretty mixed. Last year I definitely got used to the LG interface after using the G4 for about the better part of a year. It was one of my most used Android phones I had. The experience you're going to get is pretty simple, but one thing I didn't enjoy off the bat is the way the icons look. Just not a big fan of them. In addition to that, I'm pretty accustomed to having an app drawer, so that was something that I didn't really like here either. But otherwise, the device didn't experience any stutters and was overall very smooth to use. I would definitely like to see some changes to LG's Optimus UX 5.0 in general though. When it came to the camera, I had really high expectations. After reviewing the LG G4 and the V10 later in the year, I felt that the LG G5 without a doubt was going to have possibly the best camera on the market. The manual photo mode and manual video mode on the LG V10 in particular was huge, and the image quality was stunning to say the least. It was without a doubt arguably one of the best cameras on the market. The LG G5 has a dual camera setup, featuring a wide angle camera coming in at 16 megapixels and a normal camera that comes in at 8 megapixels. The specialty of the 16 megapixel camera is its ability to capture in super wide angle at 135 degrees. You also have the ability to record 4K video, and on the front you will find an 8 megapixel camera. From looking at these photo samples, it is without a doubt that the LG G5 has the widest rear-facing camera. It does have a little bit of a fisheye effect though, and the quality from either of the cameras isn't anything amazing. By no means is it horrible, but I noticed that the colors were rendered far too saturated in kind of a bad way. And especially with the images coming out of the 16 megapixel camera, when you crop in you notice that a lot of detail is lost. The sharpness just isn't really there, and although in most cases you were able to capture a pretty good image, I noticed in some situations the camera struggled to set exposure and white balance. A lot of these complaints surround the fact that this is a flagship smartphone, and we all know that LG is able to make a great camera, as we saw in the V10 and G4. I know I brought up those two phones quite a bit in this review already, but I really did think that those were a lead off as to what we were going to see this year. The low light images really didn't turn out nicely, and in this image here it was actually taken at sunset when it was still relatively bright out. Some of these images were taken in San Francisco with my friend John Mendez and his G5 unit, so a link to his channel will be in the description section below. But when I came back, I did also take some more images and test out the G5 for an extended period of time with my own unit provided by Telus. The front-facing camera though was once again decent in well-lit situations, but performed pretty badly when it came to low light even at sunset. When it came to the 4K video recording though, it is actually pretty good. It does render the colors a little bit more saturated, and one good feature about the wide-angle lens is that it gives you the ability to zoom in 2 times. While you're on screen, you're easily able to just press the plus button and toggle the zoom in and out, but the autofocus did have some problems as you zoomed in more. The Cam Plus is one of the LG friends that you have the option of picking up for your LG G5. It allows you to have a physical shutter button as well as zoom more easily, especially in video mode. I personally picked one up to play around with, and unless you're actually a camera enthusiast who plans to take all of their photos on the LG G5, for most people it will not be worth it. The shutter button is just a small plastic piece and seems slightly finicky, and the zoom dial is very loose. At the price of $100 Canadian I paid for it, I don't see many people looking to pick this up. With the battery, you'll find a 2800 mAh internal battery that gives you the ability to swap it out during the day using the modular bottom. Like a lot of the things I've been talking about this review though, it was kind of a disappointment. Getting over 4 hours of screen on time was a long shot, and out of a flagship smartphone you definitely expect that to be a given nowadays. In my initial 4 days of testing, I only got into the 4-hour territory 1 out of 4 days. One thing I did like about the G5 though was the speakers. They actually were pretty loud considering they were down facing, and the audio quality was decent as well. Here's just a short test.
Late night when you need my love. I know when that hotline blink, that can only mean one thing. I know when that hotline.
So now time for my long conclusion. I'm sure you can all agree after this review that the LG G5 is a pretty big disappointment. I hope it didn't come across as biased, but I really did want to like this phone, and I honestly mean that. I really enjoyed the LG G4 and V10, and in fact when it first was announced I was more excited for the G5 than the S7 Edge. After reviewing the Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge though, I have to say Samsung had really nailed it in every category, and it is a really tough phone to beat. They have set the bar really high as we try to creep towards what we would call the perfect smartphone, but the G5 has seemingly failed to satisfy the fundamentals, including the display brightness issue, the fact that the camera is rather underwhelming, and the way that they executed the modular design and the LG Friends, which are going to be a big part of the success of that concept. I would almost call it a concept, a prototype, or a half-baked phone, as a lot of its features that they have tried to introduce this year just didn't work that well. For consumers out there who are looking for a flagship smartphone and willing to spend good money on it, you're gonna have to decide between the LG G5, the Samsung Galaxy S7s, the iPhone 6s, the Nexus 6P, and right now I really just can't give you a reason as to why the G5 should be your choice. I'm personally really disappointed, as you can tell at many points of this video, as I had a lot of faith in LG to make an amazing smartphone this year, and I really enjoyed what they produced last year. But at this point we're just going to have to wait, and hopefully LG makes as big of a comeback as Samsung did after the disappointing S5 year. But aside from that, let me know what you think in the comment section below, and I'll see you all in the next video.